Hi again, everybody. Scott Costa, the publisher of TED Magazine. Thanks for joining me for another Distributed with TED Magazine podcast, both audio and video on this one. We have regular correspondent Brian Rooney on. Brian's the principal at Callas Kingsley Electrical Sales. He's a great guy and tells me what's happening out in the field. He's been on the podcast a bunch of times before. We talked about his conversations and what he's been doing and how busy he's been with both manufacturers and distributors, and just how work has been going these days. I really wanted to get a kind of a lay of the land, a feel for what's happening out there. He gave us some great insight. Not going to make you wait for it. Here it is. Brian Rooney from Callas Kingsley Electrical Sales on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. My reporter in the field, Brian Rooney, is back with me again. Brian's the principal of Callas Kingsley Electrical Sales and a past TED Magazine 30 under 35 award winner. He's back again. Tell me what's happening out there. Frequent contributor to the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast. Brian, how you doing today?
Back at you live, Chicago IL. Happy to be here, Scott. Thanks for having me. Live from the field.
It's always great having you on because you give me the insight again. I'm stuck in these four walls. I haven't been at a trade show or a conference in forever. So it's good to hear what's happening in the world. And I'll start by saying this. We were supposed to record this at a specific time, and then we had to push back about 15 or 20 minutes because you're so busy. So tell me what's happened. Tell me how your day was. Tell me what's happening on a regular basis in terms of how's business going.
Well, today, like I told you, doing some upgrades at our facility in Wooddale, and I told you I feel like a doctor. I got these all appointments set up. If one gets pushed back 10 minutes, next thing you know, everything gets pushed back 10 minutes. So I'm running around town, seeing people, chasing business, and life is pretty good right now. It's extremely, extremely busy, but it's good at the same time.
So talk to me a little bit about seeing people. Again, there's still ongoing Delta variant COVID concerns, but so what kind of distributors, what kind of manufacturers are you talking to? What are they saying in terms of, we're still pushing forward? What's happening out there for you?
I would say it's a little bit more of a mixed bag than it was, probably even 6-7 months ago. Maybe even longer than that. But I think at the real height of COVID in 2020, pretty much everybody was, had people working remotely, weren't necessarily taking vendor visits in the office, things like that. The only way to really get at people was kind of off campus, whether that was maybe for an odd lunch when restaurants were open or golf or something like that. Now obviously all the off-campus stuff is still going on, seeing people that way, but it's more of a mixed bag. Some distributors in town are still having their staffs work remotely. Some are totally in the office. Some are hybrid. It's kind of all over the map right now. And I think with some of the COVID numbers spiking recently, and here in Illinois, them going back to a mask mandate for indoor facilities, has kind of changed people's opinions as to when they're going to bring people back, how many they're going to bring back, at what structure, whether that's hybrid, fully remote, fully in the office. It's a little bit more of a mixed bag, but generally people are out there interacting with one another. It's just a matter of what the environment is.
And are they, regardless if they're in the office or not, and you're, like you said, you're still holding meetings and being able to get together with them, are they reporting that they're busy there's so many levels we can go here. Are they reporting that they're busy today compared to a year ago? Are they forecasting that they're going to stay busy, for an extended period of time? What kind of things are they telling you about, how business is for them right now?
I think generally everyone's busy right now. It seems like there's a lot of business out there to be had. So that's across the board. That I don't hear many complaints of lack of activity. But when it comes to kind of future business, I get a little bit more of a mixed bag. Everybody has their predictions they try to make about the market. Where's inflation going to go? Where are the commodity prices going? How's the supply chain going to look? Are we still going to have 50 ships, docked outside of the port of LA or San Francisco or wherever it may be? And it's a little bit of a mixed bag, but generally I would say it trends towards a positive outlook. A lot of people are feeling good about the end of this year and as we go into next year. Now, as we get into Q2, Q3 of 22, that's where it gets into a little bit more of a mixed bag. But I think in the short to medium term, we have a pretty good outlook, especially here in the Chicago, Wisconsin kind of area of the Midwest.
Yeah, and just again, for clarity's sake, we should say this too. You're based in Chicago. You do work though, Wisconsin, Northern Illinois, Indiana. Am I missing anything?
Yep. So we do my company, Callas Kingsley, does the top half of Illinois, the eastern half of Wisconsin, the upper peninsula of Michigan, and the northwest corner of Indiana. So the three northwest counties there.
Okay. And so what are you seeing in terms of in that area? What, again, we live in such a weird world right now. We have a lot of work, but we're short staffed. I mean, are you seeing that? Brian, are you short staffed? I mean, what's going on out there in terms of, you'd really like to have full capacity of staff?
So across our territory, there can be times, especially with COVID regulations, that are very different because we cross over into 4 different states. But I will say right now, the one commonality across all the territories is the manpower issue. I think if you speak to manufacturers based in those areas, if you speak to distributors based in those areas, it's tough. It's tough to find people even still. I think a lot of folks were predicting maybe with some of the increased unemployment benefits that there would be more folks coming out of the woodwork, to come back to work, to get back into the workforce. Maybe they're vaccinated. Maybe they feel more comfortable with their life at this point. I will say, we've hired 2 people in the last month. So maybe there is some truth to that. I've gotten a lot of inquiries as to some open jobs we've had. And it's gone pretty well for us, but I do know that there's a lot of people out there that are still looking for both skilled and unskilled labor, trying to get people in there. And the hardest thing right now is finding people with experience because most of those people are already working.
Yeah. So what's working for you in terms of being able to close the deal? I mean, there's a lot of companies out there that have openings. And so it's sort of what I refer to as an employees market instead of an employer's market. My generation, I don't want to say again, we joke about the 30 under 35 stuff, right? My generation would never quit a job unless they had another job lined up. The next generation is like currently, it's like there's so many jobs out there. I can quit today and be hired by somebody else on Friday. So what do you think is working for you in terms of, getting folks interested in Callas Kingsley and working specifically for you?
When it comes to kind of the recruitment piece, I kind of had to go to a little bit of a last resort. I would say about 4 or 5 months ago, I was having a lot of trouble. We had about 3 spots open in our warehouse. We have a 50,000 square foot warehouse, and we ship for 8 manufacturers, and 4 of those manufacturers were shipping to 10 plus states. So we have a lot of volume going on in our warehouse. So I had a couple spots open, and I just really couldn't fill them. And I went to the last resort, which was a temp agency. Generally, I tried to stay away from that just because of the additional costs. A lot of times you're looking at a 30 to 40% adder on top of what you would normally pay somebody for a temp agency fee. Yeah. But it was big for us because, I was able to get one person through there that, we'll be bringing on full time. Right. Now as an employee at Callas Kingsley, I was able to supplement when I knew that we were going to have busier weeks. I was able to grab a couple more people, increase our manpower. Mm-hmm. So it was a little bit more investment, but it worked out in the long term. And additionally, when it comes to hiring for other positions, direct hires, I've really kind of not pigeonholed myself into hiring people that have electrical industry experience. I think there's a lot of transferable skills that come from other industries, whether it may be, tech, other type sales industries, things like that. A lot of the soft skills that are required in our industry are also required in other industries. So right. I've kind of leaned into the fact that, I believe that myself and my management team can onboard and train people effectively. So it doesn't necessarily require us to need someone that has the exact skills that the job calls for, as long as they have the soft skills and the willingness to learn.
Yeah, that is a great point. Again, and you can train, provided you're committed to it, you can train some folks, but there's always that weird sort of bad cycle that you get in where you're short staffed, so you're too busy, and then you're too busy to actually focus on your recruitment and your hiring and getting the right people, because it's just as weird. So the temporary agency thing may have helped you out a lot. Are you seeing the same thing with distributors and manufacturers, the folks that you're dealing with? Are they also still struggling with staffing?
Yes, I'm seeing that with manufacturers, with the distributors. It's pretty across the board, and it's just something I think that we've had to get creative. I've even had in the past few months, I've even approached people I've been in a restaurant and asked waiters if they want to come, they want to come work. It doesn't always work out, but I think that type of creative recruitment, when you see something in somebody that you think could be beneficial to your team, you can't let it pass by, just because there's not many people out there. So sometimes you got to, as the kids say, you got to shoot your shot and see what you can do. But I will also say that one of the things that we've really leaned into too, as far as direct hires, is, we've increased our investment in places like Indeed. I use Indeed a lot for various positions. I promote them for, normally I use about $150 a month kind of budget. Mm-hmm. And that's been really good for getting quality candidates. And I think Indeed should probably give me some sort of promotional fee after this. It's been a huge help for us, and I know a lot of people are already aware with it. So I would just definitely, get creative, but lean into the tools that have worked in the past for you. Like for us, Indeed, maybe it's something else for you, and that tends to work.
I'm going to get my team on getting an Indeed sponsorship maybe for some future podcasts. There you go. So I appreciate that, Brian. That's good.
Hey, Indeed, if you want to sponsor the NAD regional coming up in November,
exactly.
Sponsors. Shout out.
Join us down in Austin. Yeah, down in Austin, Texas for the Eastern Regional Conference, November 8th. Well, there'll be, it'd be kind of crazy, but everybody's struggling with the same thing, and I'm not I've never been a huge advocate of, let's steal some guy from the other company, as another member. Because I think that kind of like what you did, there's a lot of soft skilled, great people out there that if you really are committed to them and committed to training them will be superstars, in this industry, in the supply chain. So it is a good point, though, that I hopefully folks are going to take that advice that you've given to try and fill some of their staffing needs. And it's been it's so weird because sort of like what you're saying, everybody's busy, but they don't have the staff, or the second big thing is they don't have the materials, they don't have the supplies. So what are you, again, you're working as a manufacturer's rep, and you're dealing with manufacturers, and you're dealing with distributors. How are we doing on, getting folks the stuff they need to sell them to contractors to get it installed? But what are you seeing out there these days?
It's a struggle, Scott. I think that's, I try to be the positive guy, but it gets difficult. I think, and you're seeing it totally across the board. I think we've seen, a few things we've seen this year. We've seen a huge lead times, longer than we've ever seen before. We've seen, so many price increases. I think a lot of distributors, contractors, et cetera, are getting, are almost numb to those at this point. But that said, a lot of people understand why both of those things are happening. We are still in a global pandemic, and we are still kind of struggling through, just like we spoke about, the labor shortages, and whatever it may be. I will say that, it feels like it's starting to get better. We definitely have had some great improvements with some different manufacturers that have really tried to get out ahead of these things and make sure that, that raw material supplies are strong, whether it be steel, copper, resin, whatever. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, we just had the hurricanes in the Southeast as well that probably didn't help things for quite a few manufacturers. Yeah. But overall, I think things are trending in the right direction. I don't think there's a silver bullet that's going to fix any of this overnight, but I think we're going in the right way. And I think the whole industry kind of being understanding why it's happening and what's happening has been hugely helpful for everybody. And I think if we just continue to communicate through this, we'll all get out the other end eventually. And it may not be tomorrow, but it's going to happen. We're going to get through this, and the supply chain is going to improve. But right now, I think it's still tough.
Yeah, I worry about loyalty, and I'll use news as an example, since it's TED Magazine. It's like, hey, if you're only doing news, one day a week, then people are going to find other places to get their news and not pay attention to you anymore. And I worry about, again, some of these supply chain shortages. After a while, contractors want to be loyal to, a specific brand, or they want to be loyal to a specific distributor. But after a while, they're like, I just got to get my hands on some stuff. Are you seeing things like that? Or is anybody doing anything to kind of, keep the end users, the end installers kind of placated and make sure that they understand what everybody's going through right now?
Yeah, I mean, as the end customer, you always have to have contingencies because they have to worry about their client as well, who generally tends to be the owner of the building or whatever it may be. And I think thankfully people have been able to be loyal only because, we've all worked together and the communication has been strong enough. I think the loyalty drops off when there isn't communication, when you're not letting the customer base know what's going on. And a lot of that burden has fallen on manufacturers reps, our shoulders, on the distributors, on the field salespeople from the manufacturers, to kind of deliver that message. And I think as long as that's been delivered effectively and on a regular basis, there hasn't really been too much issue of loyalty being broken. But like we said, at the same time, you still have to have product to finish the job.
Right. And let's talk a little bit about travel. A little bit of, again, we touched on the NAD Eastern Regional Conference coming up in November. What have you been doing stuff? Have you been traveling? Have you been attending trade shows, conferences? Again, the Chicago area has an amazing, electric association and groups that are involved. And you're involved with the young electrical professionals up in Chicago. Have you guys been doing stuff? Have people been going to things? Kind of what's been happening in your neck of the woods?
Yeah, we've the association here, all cogs in that wheel, reps, manufacturers, contractors, distributors, engineers, has really pulled together to make sure that we kind of all stay connected. And we've had some fantastic events so far this year. We just a month or two ago, we had our all industry golf outing with, a little over 200 golfers, I believe. We've had young electrical professionals events recently. I want to say maybe back in July, end of July, that was, probably had, 40, 50 people at that event. We just had our Electric Association trade show, as well as some kind of panel discussions around maybe code changes and different things like that. So it's been really good. People have been back out. That said, they've still been mitigating, all the COVID stuff they can. At the Electric Association conference, you had to have your masks on the whole time when you were talking to people. They had hand sanitizer everywhere. So they've done a really good job of keeping everybody safe. But at the same time, the members of the association have done a great job of getting out there, staying present and kind of being face to face with people. So we've been very lucky to have those events and to be able to stay connected with one another, even though, some of the COVID numbers may not be trending in the direction we all want.
But would you say that again, I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to, put words in your mouth here, but are you saying that attendance is sort of as expected? It may not be as great as it was 5 years ago, but it's coming around and people are starting to go to things more often.
Certainly. And I think that's where we're at. I think given the circumstances, attendance at all the events that I said are about as good as they're going to be. Because I think you're always going to have people that, maybe they have young kids at home and kids can't get the vaccine yet. So maybe they don't feel comfortable going out and about, even if they are vaccinated, because they don't, everyone has their own personal kind of situation going on. And the cool thing is that just like the supply chain issues, everyone's very understanding of that. So kind of given the fact that everyone has their own personal situations at home, I think the attendance has been very, very solid. And I think we're really lucky to have such a good association here locally that has helped push that and keep everybody safe.
So the craziness is, we're days away from flipping the calendar, and that means we're into the fourth quarter of 2021. Like, what? What are you looking toward, over the last 3 months of the year? Do you think we'll remain steady? Compare the fourth quarter of 2021 to the fourth quarter of 2019, if you can. What do you kind of see ahead for you?
I still feel like I'm in March of 2020, Scott. I don't know where I have no idea where the last year and a half went. I think like Will Ferrell said, I might have blacked out. I'm not really sure. But it's just been a whirlwind with everything that's been going on. You almost haven't had a chance to reflect on it. So I think moving forward, I think the end of this year is going to be strong, just like the last little bit has been. I don't see, too much changing there. I see the beginning of next year also kind of same boat. Hard to tell where COVID numbers will end up. Hopefully we won't have too many more spikes and we'll really start trending in a good direction. But when it comes to the amount of business, especially around here in the Midwest, we've benefited from a lot of different energy business. A lot of data center business has been really good. We've actually seen quite a large downfall on multifamily and light commercial construction starts, specifically in the Chicagoland area. Through July, our light commercial and multifamily new construction starts were down 54% year to date versus 2020. So it's interesting because there's a lot of business out there, but it's a different type of business than we've had in the past.
Is mixed use still spiking for you? What do you see in mixed use? Is that still viable? Yeah,
we're seeing it. I mean, it's there's a lot of different things that have been down. So like I just kind of spoke about some of the light commercial and the multifamily, and then look at maybe even the tenant improvement market as well, retail. All that has really kind of, unfortunately, has dropped quite a bit, and it'd be interesting to see if a lot of that comes back. I think some of that will be predicated on people coming back to the office, but I feel like I open an article every other day and there's a new real estate investment firm that's investing in Chicago. So a lot of kind of mixed signals based on the data, what we're feeling. It's tough to know, but I think the markets that have kind of really been strong in our part of the country will continue to be strong, and then hopefully we'll get some of these lagging markets like TI, tenant improvement, and multifamily and things like that'll come back as well, especially given the fact that we have all-time housing lows in the Chicagoland area and things along those lines.
Right. Well, we got to get back together again. Again, I always appreciate, Brian Rooney, you coming on the podcast and again being my reporter in the field. So I have to get back together again in mid-December, so you can give me kind of the first quarter of 2022 predictions and sort of a 2021 wrap up. And we talked before we started recording, we may have to talk a little bit about the future of the Big 12 conference. I'm the Kansas guy. I know you're the Iowa State guy. We're like the two schools that are trapped in the conference that we didn't think we'd still be a part of anymore. So we're rivals, but we're together on this one. It's you and me,
Exactly. And I'm wearing my Iowa State, even though it's a Millbank shirt, I'm wearing my Iowa State red. So I think the Big 12's coming back with a vengeance, baby. We got BYU, Houston, UCF, and Cincy. I hope those Longhorns and Sooners regret going to the SEC.
Darn right I do. They're the hated rivals now. If you're no longer the hated rival, it's now them. So
I would give you a horns down signal, but I think the Big 12 commissioner would find me. So
you get in trouble for that. You would get in trouble for that. Well, hey, listen, folks, if you want us to talk about the Big 12 on a podcast or anything else on a podcast, hey, give me a shout. Again, there's still two ways you can contact me. Call me up right here at my desk in my office, 314-812-5311. You can send me an email, scosta, SCOSTA, at NEAD.org. Brian Rooney, I always enjoyed the conversation. Thanks a ton for joining me on the Distributed with TED Magazine podcast.
Great to be here. Thanks for having me, Scott.
My pleasure. And we'll talk to everybody again soon. Thanks for watching.